You only get one shot at this, and the question is, how do we know that it's actually going to fit? And, I mean, how big can you go?
Hi, I'm Joe, and welcome to Motor City Boat Werks. Let's get to work. I'm building a boat, and this thing behind me is the big board. They say the big board is the list of all the things you have to do, and it's a manifestation of everything you failed to accomplish. It stares me in the face every day I come in the shop. The check marks aren't coming fast enough. If you've been watching my channel, you probably wonder sometimes, what exactly is he doing? Why are we talking about this subject? Why are we talking about that subject? But take a moment and follow me here. In July, I finished phase 1. I started phase 2. One of the first things I did was talk about the components that were gonna go back inside the boat. I had to pick a lot of different items. I had to buy a bunch of new stuff. I ended up talking about the 12-volt refrigerator that's gonna go inside the boat. That led me down the path of building a cabinet to put it in. I had to purchase new water and waste tanks for the boat, but before I could do that, I had to make mock-up of what the tanks would look like to make sure everything fit. Once I ordered the tanks, I had to wait for them to come back and deal with the problems of damaged tanks during shipping. At some point, you saw me put together the Helm chair. You probably wonder why I was doing that, and it's because I knew I was going to be focusing on the electrical components in the boat, and most of the electrical components are based around the Helm station. Before I could do anything, I needed to have an idea how the chair was going to fit with the Helm station. Once I delved into the electrical components, I realized that I was really out of my depth. I had to hire an electrical consultant to kind of help me go through the planning process. The horn button is set up at the Helm station, so I dabbled with trying to get the vintage horns to work. I gave up on that idea. And then most recently, I installed the 120 volt shore power, the smart plug that's gonna bring the electricity onto the boat when I'm at a marina or something like that. Well, all of this is centered around the Helm station. I know what you're thinking. You're wondering if there's any logic to my plan. Does this guy know what he's doing? That's why this episode is all about the details around the Helm station on my Pocket Trawler. So what am I doing? I'm working on making templates for all of the screens and switches, joysticks, controllers, the engine panel, all of these items that have to go into the boat. They'll go around various parts of the helm, on different bulkheads and stuff like that throughout the boat. And I need to have templates of what they look like, what space they're going to take up. This will allow me to decide, oh, I want the horn button over here, and I want to put something else over there, and I can swap things around. But I can't do any of that until I get some templates just for a visual reference to kind of understand where everything's going to be positioned. This also allows me to determine, is it going to fit? Or are things going to fit side by side in the space that I have available? So what I've done is I've gone through, and for every single item in the boat, every switch, every joystick, every control panel, I've gone through and I've got the dimensions of the panel. In some cases, I have the dimensions of the cutout and the depth that's required to be able to mount something. And now I'm taking these dimensions and I'm transferring them to some colored paper so that I can get a template. The reason I use the colored cardboard is so that it stands out. When I put it inside the boat, I can really get an idea what the screens are going to look like. The dimensions for the templates, all that's going to come from the documentation that comes with the various components. The one that I'm working on right now, this is the Beta Marine control panel. It's the Deluxe C control panel for the diesel engine. And this is, this will go on the helm there. This is where the key for the engine is, and the tachometer, and the temperature sensor, oil sensor, all that stuff goes in this panel. And this is what it looks like right here. So in many cases, some of the panels have options. There's bigger ones, small ones, different configurations. And by doing this, you can kind of decide what's going to work. Do we need to order something special? Now, you and I have come a long way, more than 2 years in the boat works. And along the way, I've been telling you all my little boat restoration rules. This brings us to number 20. Mock-ups help prevent screw-ups. We've all seen it before on YouTube. People are throwing components into their yachts and they're never bothering to do a mock-up. nothing fits. You end up having to drill multiple holes. Ask me how I know. The solution is lots of templates, lots of mock-ups. Plan everything out ahead of time so you try and reduce your mistakes. I say it every episode, Motor City Boat Werks has no sponsors. I get compensated in no way for any of the products or the places, the people that I talk about on my channel. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and help spread the word. This channel would not be possible without your support. Thank you. When you're doing this type of restoration, rebuild, one of the things you have to think about is where everything is going to be located. Ideally, what you'd like to do is have all of your electrical gauges and switches and what have you be in one location, but this is really not feasible on a boat this size. There's just not enough bulkhead space or cabinet space to do something like that. Initially, I debated kind of breaking up my electrical system into 3 kind of separate electrical panels with 3 separate panel locations throughout the boat. And my electrical consultant, Bob, really gave me some good feedback about how this would present a number of problems if I was to go that route. Having multiple electrical panels spread all over the boat means that you have to run some very large cables back and forth all over the boat. It's not really something that you want to be doing. It's much better to kind of have the main things in one location and then some of the lighter duty type of electrical gauges or switches in different locations. And that's what I'm going to be doing. Almost everything will be here at the helm. And then there'll be some gauges and some cabin outlets down below by the galley. There'll be a shower pump switch, of course, in the head. And then there will also be 12-volt air conditioner switch and panel. All of that will be in the aft cabin where the thermostat, has to be in order to kind of regulate the temperature. And I think this is probably the best way to go about organizing things on a boat this size. If you're on a bigger boat, if you're above 30, 35 feet, you're doing something bigger than that, well, you have the luxury of maybe having a dedicated electrical cabinet that goes with your electrical locker where your batteries are. But on a boat this size, I just can't do that. So, like most things in the boat works, when you do one project and then you do another, well, often things don't quite fit because something has changed dimensionally inside the boat. And if you remember, I did the headliner project. I put the headliner up on the walls inside the boat. So now the panel won't fit down in the galley where some of the monitors are going to go. So I've got to trim this PVC foam board panel up, get it back in there to fit properly against the headliner material before we can even get to the template part. 1 step forward and like 2 steps back. It's the same thing every day. Look at this. This is looking good. Check this out. All right, we got this trimmed up and it fits in there. So this panel previously was a piece of teak plywood damaged by water leaks over the years. Now we've got a new piece that goes here. There's trim that goes right here over this wall panel. And it'll cover all this up here. This seam here, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. I think we're going to have to end up probably milling some fine teak trim that goes around there, affixing it to this board so when you remove it, it just stays on there. That's what I'd like to do. You can see it's a good tight fit. Look at that. Nice. And waterproof. We don't got to worry about that. This countertop right here goes all the way across here for the galley. We've got a beautiful solid surface countertop. We'll be talking about that down the road, how I chose it, why I chose it, and the do-it-yourself aspects of doing that. It's really a great solution. It doesn't add too much weight. It's completely waterproof, very durable. It's going to look awesome. It'll probably be something that makes the boat look very, I think, finished. So now we've got our templates here, and we've got a box that's going to be in this area here behind here. There's plenty of depth. This is a Victron monitor for the servo. We've got a bilge pump switch, and we've got a tank monitor. I think what we want to do is this is why you do the templates, so you can mess around like this. Maybe you want to put bilge pump up here. I got to see how deep it is. But, or maybe these are very shallow, these items right here. So maybe you do,
We also have to have an outlet here. I think somewhere up here, like in this area right here, I have a 12-volt fan that goes right here. And we'll talk about that in another episode. But I want there to be a fan here on the galley while someone's working. That'll probably go right here. Probably we'll have to have a light switch here also for the LED lights, cabin lights that are inside here. So today I'm in the Boat Works and I've got to work on getting some proper measurements for the main electrical panel. This is going to be the panel that has the 120 volt coming in from shore power, and it's also going to be the distribution panel for the 12 volt DC for all of the electrical components in the boat. I've made the decision to locate the panel at the Helm station on the Albin 27, but what I really need to know is how big can that panel be? It comes in a couple varieties. One of the options for this panel is it allows a recessed frame, and the panel kind of sits inside this frame, but the panel adds an extra 1.75 inches all the way around, so I've got to make sure that I have enough room, and to do that, I've got my trusty template here. This is what the electrical panel would look like if it had the exterior recessed frame. If it's too big, then I got to go to the smaller size, which is just the panel by itself, and it will basically bolt in place. All right, so this space right here, this is where the electrical panel is going to go. And all of the wires will come from the electrical locker basically along this side of the boat, and then they'll come up inside here. The question is, how big can I go? Because when the steering wheel and the auto helm is on here, there's a bracket for the auto helm that mounts right here. Now I've taped this off to kind of get an idea of where things will sit, but you can see that this overlaps, so this will be a problem. So let's just put this on there and see, is there any way I can use the recessed frame? All right. So I just think the answer is that the recessed frame is just too big. It takes up too much space. So I've got to try and figure out what the size is of just the panel itself, and can I get that to fit? I'm back, and this is the new size. This is the size of the actual electrical panel, no frame. It's just an aluminum panel, and it would get bolted to the surface here. You only get one shot at this, and the question is, how do we know that it's actually going to fit? And, I mean, how big can you go? Now, it's not as great an option as the recessed panel, but I think it's going to work just the same, and in fact, it may even be better because it's going to allow it to be a little bit higher than this step here. I don't want my foot hitting the electrical panel. So, take a look at this. This one, here's where that bracket is. This can go right up against there, and it goes like that. And I think this is just great. That gives us plenty of room here for the steps. All these down here, these are 120, so they're only in play when the boat is at anchor or on shore power at a marina or something like that. All the 12 volt stuff is up here. There's gauges up here. This is going to work a lot better, and it will just mount right on here just like that. And it goes like this. Auto helm, like so. And you can see, I don't know if you can see the bracket, but the bracket's right behind here. And this is a wheel. So it goes basically like that. So now, this should be able to go basically like so. Perfect. And when you take it off, you pull it out, and it should have wires. You should be able to take it out and do that. Take it out, and it definitely makes a difference if you get rid of this. So let's see. So let me show you something about these helm wheels. You know, when I was fitting the captain's helm chair, I started thinking that maybe I wanted a wheel that was slightly bigger in order to raise it up a little higher so that it'd be easier and more comfortable to put your hand on the helm wheel. So I went ahead and I purchased a 20-inch helm wheel instead of the 18-inch one, destroyer wheel that came with the boat. So this one over here, that's the 20-incher, and this one here is the 18-incher, but I want to show you something that I didn't really know. There's a slight difference in the height of the two wheels. So this one here is right at 2.5 inches. This one here is at 2 3/4. There's a 1/4 inch difference. The height of the wheel from, the hub where it attaches, this is called the dish. And there's usually a particular angle. It's quite common on different types of steering wheels. So there's a slight difference in the two dishes here. I thought it was actually more pronounced on this one. It's really not. So I think we're okay going with the bigger wheel. It's just 1/4 inch. All this is important because if you remember when I was fitting the captain's helm chair, I made the determination that I need to push the chair back a little bit, that I need to re-drill the holes approximately 2 inches further aft of where they were. And this is all to accommodate my large size and just being comfortable at the helm station with the sliding helm chair. The question is, do I have enough room to do this once I put in the auto helm and all these other things that are going to be on the helm station? I think the answer is yes, but we've got to make sure. Check this out. All right, so the question is, how far can we go from here? You can see the holes down here, right? This is where the first hole is for the mounting point. I made the determination that I want to move these holes basically here. And this hole will be like right here, 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 here. So we're going to move this thing. We originally talked about 2 inches, but the reality is I would go at least as much as 4 inches. You really can't go more than that because we've got this is in the way. All right. We could even go as high as 4.5. Probably 4. 4 is probably as far as we can go. All right. So that's what we need to know. This last step is mocking up the helm instruments, making sure everything is the way I like it. Can you tell what's wrong with this? Well, I can. Whoever did this should be fired. This is a great example. Years ago when I designed the Helm pod, this box enclosure that would hold some of the instruments here at the top of the helm, well, I failed to take into consideration the size that it needed to be, but also how was it going to work with the engine controls, the throttle, and the gear shifter. Well, the box causes interference and they can't be actuated properly. This is a bonehead move, and now I've got to start all over again, redesigning the Helm pod. Well, that's where we're at on this episode. I've got to get to work and figure out what kind of design I'm going to come up with for the Helm pod there. Something better than the simple box that I had before. There's got to be a solution to that for the shifters and the throttle and everything. And I'll be back again soon with another episode. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time. Stay motivated.